Hello, and welcome. I have now discovered live versions of broadcasting online, and this is something I'm going to hopefully be doing for the foreseeable, really. So do join me on Mondays at 8 p.m. And let it not be such an echo whenever I live broadcast. That would be lovely. Um, and I mean, it's a long time coming, really. There's been a lot of firsts. It's been a bit of a weird old time recently. I've been getting a lot of firsts under my belt, really, with regards to professional firsts, and they're quite nice. They're even nicer because they've been hard earned. So I've been able to become a supervisor for postgraduate research. That's been a recent inclusion to my CV, and again, hard earned because I wouldn't have been able to do so unless I got a big long doctorate behind me. I've also had the ability to start to push research and to be able to make applications for journals and books and what have you. And that wouldn't have been possible either without the long PhD journey that I've now got behind me. And these have all come kind of quick fire, really, and it's been lovely. It's again, the that feeling of treading on new ground, and now tonight another one live streaming. Not done it yet. This is the bare first, and no doubt it's probably looking best. It's probably going to, well, hopefully, be bare passable. And on this occasion of, this period of firsts, this era of new experiences, today I was hoping to see just at least one more. I was probably asking for a little too much, but I was still hoping to see just one more first today. That brings me to the main topic of this live session, then Brexit. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Look, today, and I'm really trying to play catch up. I've had a very busy day. With being an in-demand university lecturer, it comes with a high price on schedule, really, and at times it is incredibly difficult to keep up with breaking news. So I've been trying to, since earlier, find pockets of time to really get to grips with the deal that the Labour Party have struck with your Union. And I've not really managed to get that much time. So what I felt I will do in my first session with you is to explore what the new deal is and what it entails and how it might impact you. Because if you live in the European, the United Kingdom, then undoubtedly, either directly or indirectly, you have been impacted by Brexit, either in the run up to the referendum, which was, of course, 9 years ago now, roughly. And the impact of, I remember it vividly, the hostility, the lies, the divisiveness, and if you were in particular a minority group in the United Kingdom, if you were not of the shores, that wasn't a particularly nice time for you. Post Brexit, it's been an absolute shambles, hasn't it? I mean, it's been it's cost us. Let's see, David Cameron, Theresa May, at least those two. Boris Johnson was his own downfall, really. I would say that, well, Liz Truss was her own downfall as well. We'll get to her in, or at least I'll get to some in days to come. Her Twitter account, her X account, is the stuff of comedy. But I'll get to that at a later time. So Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, largely their own downfall. Rishi Sunak, I think, had his hands tied both by a party on its knees, really, at that point, but also both arms tied behind his back when it came to Brexit. restrictions. So I would say definitely two prime ministers Brexit has cost David Cameron because he resigned in the aftermath of the Brexit referendum in 2015-16. And then Theresa May was her own worst in some respects when trying to bring about this Brexit fantasy that apparently the British public had voted for. Remember the snap election, because apparently the majority that she had in government at that time just wasn't enough, and decided to call snap election and ended up having fewer MPs than she did before she started, which led to, well, the DUP coming in to prop her government. But either way, look, she was held to the high standards, the high fantasies of Brexiteers at that time and couldn't fill them. And you know, it ultimately led then to the era of Boris Johnson. And again, you know, he had this oven-ready deal. And we find out then from one of his advisors at the time, in a leaked recording some days ago, that you know, they didn't understand the full ramifications of Brexit on immigration, which is one of the reasons now apparently that we have much higher rates of immigration than we ever did when we were members of the European Union. That's just facts. So look, there's been massive ramifications politically, culturally, socially of Brexit. And today, I suppose I ask, in my efforts to catch up with the deal that's been struck and to understand the variables that it touches upon, you know, I'm trying to understand the rhetoric from a couple of interviews that I've seen, and we're gonna have a little look at one in particular in just a little while, where this perception of a Brexit betrayal comes in. What exactly, I suppose, are we betraying? And that is something I'm going to have a look at in this live session. So I'm going to just to get across the information a little bit more simplistically. I don't really want to get bogged down with things that are just overly technical not in my first live session. That is not fair on me. It's not fair on you. But let's just go to Sky 2, to be fair, lay out sometimes complex stories, complex issues in a overly simplistic way, but it's good for us today. And the first one that we're going to stop at is we're just going to go through this, go for a little bit, because I want to understand, and no doubt you might want to understand, how the Brexit deal today, or the United Kingdom's deal with the European Union, is going to impact you directly. And we begin with travel. You know, this greater use apparently of so-called e-gates and travel for pets as well. So Sky News that British passport holders will be able to use more e-gates in Europe to avoid longer border control queues that have become norm since Brexit in many EU countries. And with regards to pet travel, pet passports will be brought back. So cats and dogs coming from the UK no longer need pricey animal health certificates for every trip. After Brexit, pet owners had to get a certificate for it in the United Kingdom, then a vet in the EU before returning. That sounds like a pain in the arse. I've never traveled with a pet before, but that sounds, I mean, considering these are things that were brought in post-Brexit, so these weren't an issue for us. We decided to vote for this. So this is has been an issue for people traveling. I'm on an Irish passport, so, you know, queue up. And people traveling with pet. And, you know, look, we all travel, I would imagine, to some extent. If you're on a British passport, of course, then this is quite problematic if you are on a British passport, because, well, queues can last for some time. Just to, you know, sort of further reiterate that point, I've been doing a little bit of just scoping around, digging around some other sources as well to pad out, give a little bit more context on each of the points of this deal today. And when it comes to how Brits have been impacted by Brexit when traveling to other countries, including delays of passport control and with pet travel, Euronews in 2025 this year that British citizens lost EU free movement rights as a result of Brexit. We know this, becoming so-called third country nationals, and this led to longer wait times at EU borders, with reports of up to 90-minute delays during peak travel in countries like Spain and France, of course, very popular destinations for Britons. And the recent development then today between the EU and the UK, this agreement allowed Brits to use them e-gates in several EU passports, airports. And this will hopefully then reduce queues significantly. So there's a benefit. There's a measurable, tangible benefit. In regards to pet travel, the Independent newspaper in 2025, this year, reports that UK pet owners need an animal health certificate, or otherwise known as an AHC, per EU trip, costing somewhere in and around 150 to 250 quid each time. Previously now, the EU pet passport allowed unlimited travel, and negotiations then were partly in this agreement about being able to restore pet passport arrangements. Again, look, this is a measurable benefit. So with regards to travel, then it's all good. We're having closer alignment, and things are being made easier. So again, keep eyes for anybody watching right now, or maybe in the rays that come of this live session hereafter. Just drop the benefit, would rather drop the betrayals into the comments. Where's the betrayal here? So keep that in mind as we move along. Sky News then reporting on red tape on food and drink sales. So a new sanitary and I've never seen that before. Sanitary. I'm going to just skip to SBS. Deal has been agreed to reduce red tape needed to import and export food and drink between the UK and the EU. So there is no time limit to this part of the government said will reduce the burden on businesses and reduce lorry queues at the border. The vast majority of routine checks and certificates for formal and plant products will be removed completely, including between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is going to, of course, have an impact on that Northern Irish setup post-Brexit. The government says that this could lower food prices and increase choices on supermarket shelves. And non-British foods that have been prevented from being sold in the EU since Brexit will be allowed back in again, including burgers and sausages. And again, just to add a little bit more context to that particular point, post-Brexit, food and drink exporters have faced substantial and significant issues when trying to export to the European Union, including customs health checks and certificates, particularly again on those animal products. And the Guardian in 2025 reported that the Food and Drink Federation reported a 34% drop in UK food and drink exports to the European Union or closest trading partners since 2019, equating to losses of over 2.5 billion annually per year. 2.5 billion lost annually per year since 2019. So this recent UK and EU sanitary agreement, it is aiming to simplify checks and aligns regulations in some sectors. Specifically, apparently it's trying to align in sectors related to dairy products and a few others. Easing the burdens then. And Reuters is already reporting on this particular benefit. Okay, so again, what are we betraying? What is the big point here? Some right-wing commentators are seeing their arse about. With regards to fishing, Jesus Christ, fishing. Look, anybody watching this at this point, who is old enough to remember Brexit? I may well get some younger heads watching this who maybe don't quite or were quite a mindset in 2015, 16. But fishing, for Nigel Farage, fishing was a massive talking point. Apparently, fishing, which accounted for, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but at that time, in the mid 2010s, I remember, I believe, that fishing as an industry in the United Kingdom accounted for something like not 4% of our total GDP. And yet it was talked about as if it was much, much more. Not that it's not an important factor, of course it is, but it was talked as if if we only Brexit, we can unleash the powers of the fucking the British fishing industry. Basically, they were talking about it as if they struck oil. They talked about it as if they could sell fish to the same tune as they could sell a new reservoir of oil for in the United Kingdom, and of course that was just never the case. It was never going to be the case, and well, argument was made by the Remain camp at the time was that, well, actually, as a third-party country to the European Union, should the UK leave, you're not actually going to have more Brexit freedoms. You're going to have more restrictions because you're going outside of the single market where you sell most of your goods, most of your catch. They didn't listen. And as a result, they have suffered. The fishing industry have suffered. So look, current fishing deals agreed in 2020 continue for another 12 years out of this deal now today. But there will be no increase in fish quotas. So the EU fishing vessels can fish in UK waters, but they require a valid license. And there are annual negotiations on access and share of stock. The UK government has announced a 360 million investment into the fishing industry to go towards new technology and equipment to modernize the fleet, train workforce, help revitalize coastal communities, support tourism, and boost seafood exports. So, look, all of that, or a lot of it remains to be seen. The investment side of it. Will they actually invest properly? Now, we'll see in time. But regardless, it opens the door of opportunity. And once again, just to add a little bit more to that particular point on today's deal, what issues have there been with fishing rights and how negatively has the British fishing sector been impacted by Brexit? Well, Brexit promised UK fishers more control of waters, of British waters. But the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, or TCA, apparently allows EU access up until 2038 and phases out only 25% of EU quotas for 5 years. The National Federation of Fishermen's Organization, the NFFO, called this a betrayal. And according to The Independent, again this year, UK seafood exports fell by 26% between 2019 and 2023. From 1.65 billion to 1.22 billion, with shellfish apparently hit hardest due to the pork tax and EU bans on some imports. And many small fishers have exited the industry due to the export losses and reduced profit margins. So it's been negative. It's been a negative experience. It's been a hard-hitting experience for the fishing sector in the United Kingdom since Brexit took hold. And the deal today hopes to alleviate that, bring profit margins, profitability back into that sector of the British economy. Again, I ask, where is that betrayal? On defence and security threats, a new security and defence partnership has agreed so the United Kingdom defence industry can participate in the EU's plan for a massive 150 billion defence fund called Security Action for Europe, or SAFE to abbreviate. And this will support thousands of British jobs. And the EU and the UK will also enhance cooperation over maritime security and accident reporting. And just to skip down, because it does kind of link in catching criminals, two sides, the UK and EU, have also agreed to enter talks about the UK having access to EU facial image data to help catch dangerous criminals. And they will also encourage Europol and the UK's National Crime Agency to cooperate over criminal threats and exchange information about terrorism and other serious threats. What's not to love about that? We're in an era where we're seeing fragility internationally, and increasing the UK's capability for defence, particularly against state-based threats, particularly after a side sort of story broke today about Iranian saboteur, a third Iranian saboteur having been charged with offences in the United Kingdom. Yeah, defence and the ability to catch criminals, all sorts, either ties with or closest international neighbours, partners. Again, what is what is? I'm not going to ask where is the betrayal. I'm just going to ask what's the issue there. Brexiteers still seem to have this issue. Any form of cooperation with the European Union is a bad part, but why? What's the bad thing here? So the UK post Brexit lost access to the Schengen Information System, the SIS Mark II, and the European arrest warrant, and this hampered real-time intelligence and the ability for fast track extraditions. And in 2019, the UK was able to access, or in 2019, the UK was able to access, according to a House of Lords security report published in 2023. In 2019, the UK accessed the SIS Mark II 603 million times. 603 million times in a single year. That figure alone, over 500 million times, should tell you how reliant UK security was on that system. And Interpol cooperation and new EU-UK frameworks have partially filled this gap. But the data sharing is still slower and less integrated. And in 2025, as of this deal, some years later, both sides have agreed to rebuild structured cooperation, including security, dialogues, and potential collaboration in other areas of security as well. That includes cybercrime and border security projects. And again, that is being reported by the Financial Times as of today as well. But when it comes to Brexit impacting carbon taxes and the British steel industry, I am getting lost. Here we go. So according to Sky News then, the deal will see closer cooperation on emissions by the United Kingdom and the EU, linking their own emissions trading system. The UK set a cap on the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions allowed from the power generation sector, energy-intensive industries, and aviation, with companies issued allowances that they can trade with each other. And under the deal, UK businesses will avoid being hit by the EU's carbon tax due coming next year, which would have handed 800 million to the European Union. And on steel, British steel exports will be protected from new EU rules and tariffs to save the UK steel industry £5 million a year. And for an industry that is struggling, that is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a lifeline, but it's definitely going to help. So look, the EU's carbon border adjustment mechanism will apply tariffs to carbon intensive like steel from 2026. And without that alignment, UK exporters faced tariffs of up to basically quite a lot. And in 2025, the UK and the EU agreed to link then this year, the EU or rather today, has agreed then to link their carbon emissions trading systems and again saving months in the process. And before I move on, again, the same question: what are the downsides? On youth mobility, we have perhaps one of the most potent issues for Brexiteers, because mobility is apparently, for youth, is apparently a backdoor into free movement. And one needs to, really ask, well, when we were in the EU before we Brexited and immigration was lower, how do you think that things are better now? And why do you want to stop the, or generations coming through from opportunities abroad? And why do you want to prevent young, actually skilled and intelligent people from abroad from coming here and contributing. I don't get it. But Sky reports that the UK and the EU have agreed to more negotiations on a youth mobility scheme to allow people aged between 18 and 30, shit, I'm outside of that, in the United Kingdom and the EU to move freely between countries for a limited period of time. The scheme would include visas for young people working, studying, volunteering, traveling, and working as au pairs. And with regards to Erasmus, the EU and the UK have agreed they should work towards an Erasmus program, the student exchange program, which was scrapped when Brexit took place. So the UK left Erasmus in 2021, and that ended then access to EU-funded study and work abroad for an estimated 70,000 UK students each year. And that was replaced, if you might, by the Turing system, which had fewer reciprocal benefits and no inbound students from EU countries. Basically, the United Kingdom tried to replicate something of an Erasmus Plus, but because Erasmus was funded by EU countries as a bloc, it was always going to be outstripped with regards to its resources when a national project was implemented, simply because, well, the spending power just wasn't there because the UK is a single nation. So we're hopefully going to see sort of an Erasmus scheme which would help what also has been a suffering university sector. And here's the big one: migration. So with regards to migration, we know that freedom of movement ended in 2021 as well. And the EU or EU immigration to the UK has fell by roughly, according to some Office of National Statistics, by about 70% between 2016 and 2023. And meanwhile, non-EU migration has surged. In 2023, net migration reached a record 745,000, driven by, however, student and work visas. Key sectors like hospitality, agriculture, and social care, according to the Office of National Statistics, reported and have been reporting severe labour shortages, prompting emergency visa schemes for the likes of, if you recall, just a couple of years ago, I feel like it was a couple of years ago, could be a little bit longer than that, but for the likes of HGV drivers and also other seasonal workers. And Sky News have said that the two sides have agreed to further work on finding solutions to tackle immigration, or rather illegal immigration, including on policies on returns and a joint commitment to tackle channel crossings. We'll also begin talks on making it easy for people to get visas to work in the United Kingdom and the EU and recognizing professional qualifications. Analysis sharing on visa abuse by country nationals will also be considered. That should be music to the ears of Brexiteers, because if they're true patriots, which they always claim to be, they're going to want the best for their economy, for their workforces, for their industries, their care sectors, all of those businesses and sectors that are really in need of workers and skilled workers. Apparently we're okay with immigration as long as it's skilled and necessary immigration. And also then analysis sharing on visa abuse, things like that. These should be applauded by Brexiteers, but again, it's not, because the outcry today is betrayal. And look, just before we move on, this article from Sky News then gives us that the UK and the EU said they should explore the UK participation in the EU's internal electricity market, including in its trading platforms. And the UK exited, as a result of Brexit, the EU internal energy market, leading to less efficient cross-border electricity trading. And a report from the Social Foundation in 2024 estimated this added 370 million per year to UK wholesale electricity costs. They rightfully, I suppose, kept saying that this, war between Russia and the Ukraine, other variant of COVID and whatever else was the reason why we saw a cost of living crisis emerge some years ago. However, they were very, very quiet with the Brexit effect, the Brexit impact. But here again, you don't have to search far, you don't have to search hard. Again, I'll reiterate, the Social Market Fund in 2024 estimated that because we exited the EU internal energy market, this added 370 million per year to UK wholesale electricity costs. And we will add that on top of the very that they are vocal about, that they try to redirect attention to, like the war between Russia and Ukraine, with a whole host of other excuses. None of them were Brexit. So look, this new agreement then restores markets calling mechanisms for better fluidity between the UK and the EU, and this will improve grid efficiency and potentially save customers some 44 billion in the coming years, according to the Financial Times. So 44 billion in savings. I'm not finding any sort of negatives here so far. This no doubt it's complex. This these deals, they take a long time to negotiate. They do take a long time to come to the compromises that need to be between not even two individual countries, but an individual country and an entire block of countries. And these things are still going to need to be rubber stamped and voted through parliaments respectively, I would imagine. And over the coming days, the potency, the benefit of this deal already and in the media and in political circles, the benefit of this deal is going to be scrutinized to no end. But on Twitter, though, Twitter's already made up its mind. So now we take a little stroll over to what is the cesspit of social media. So we're going to see what is being said on the right-wing conspiracy theorist website that is Twitter. So here we go. And I mean, it doesn't really give much substance. This really much substance from Twitter anyway, but to some extent, it's sometimes useful to have a little look at X, because you want to hear what's being echoed and what is being portrayed, how certain issues are being portrayed, because people do actively read stuff Twitter and they do still digest the verbal diarrhea that comes off this platform. So look, here we go. No farmers, no food, whoever they are. Because they got a blue tick on Twitter does not mean to say that they're actually legitimate in any sense, but they just paid Elon Musk like what, £8 a month. But anyway, workers within fishing industry put their lives at risk to provide or fish food, as shown by these North Sea trawlermen during a storm. But 12-year deal has been done on fishing access for EU boats into UK waters. Shameful. Again, a fishing industry that has been lied to and hit massively since Brexit, and can only benefit from the added help to sell their product with the nearest trading partner. That's what I'm getting so far. Whoever we got it back, apparently. Just a reminder, 17 million votes voted for Brexit and only 9.7 million voted for Labour. Keir Starmer betrayed democracy and the silent majority by doing a deal with the UK EU. I don't get, look, at this point, I am still lost. I'm always lost when I come on and do reads and live sessions and what have you. I genuinely don't know. I speculate what the anger, or where the anger might come in. Keir Starmer has betrayed democracy and the silent majority by doing a deal between the UK and the EU. I mean, the other argument, I suppose, is that it's been about 10 years. It's been about 5 or 6 years since we Brexited properly. And it's been about 10 years since we voted to Brexit the European Union. And it's been a downward trajectory for a number of different metrics. If we had some benefit to lose, and this is where the first comes from today that I was really, really hoping to see, because I've been asking for one for a very long time, years, and I've never managed to get one. Nothing tangible, nothing countable, nothing observable, objective. What benefits of Brexit is there? Really, what benefit of Brexit is there? You can point to stuff that we got this, we got sovereignty and all the rest of it, but that argument was built on a lie from the beginning. So your Brexit benefit isn't a benefit if it was built on a lie to begin with. That's just nonsense. So far, I'm not seeing any detriment to the deal that was made today. So because there's no detriment, I can't see where the betrayal comes from, unless you just simply want to keep having a miserable old time of it and keep seeing your British industries suffer continually because you want to sever and keep severed ties with your closest neighbors and trading partners. And that doesn't really seem overly patriotic. And from an account that's got that many flags and a British bull in a Churchill cap, I mean, I'm going to guess and say that they want to think of themselves as a patriot. But what is patriotic about incurring misery on ourselves? Oh, Reform UK. I genuinely haven't looked through this. I've just sort of opened these tabs before this live session. I don't know what to expect, but I just know what Twitter's like. And I'm not expecting too many positives here. No doubt we might come across wall, but I'm only going to go through just a couple of other things we want to go through to get a better picture of what today means for certain people. But Reform UK of Star sold out Britain in favour of the EU. He can never be forgiven. Fishing Industries, again, told us when he was a member of UKIP, who were the former version of Reform UK, told us that fishing industries could fry, they could soar like an eagle, and they flopped a little bit, and by a little bit, considerably. So why Keir Starmer for trying to tangibly bring about tangibly improve and bring a deal that's favorable? It's unforgivable, but Nigel for his sins become touted at the moment as the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I don't understand it. If Keir Starmer moves us closer to the EU, the UK risks becoming a dumping ground for asylum seekers. They told you this as well in 2016. I mean, it's never going to happen. He can't be trusted to protect our borders or stand up for British people. Our sovereignty is at stake. It's not. And on that, when we've got Nana Akua here from GB News, on that, I've got quite the clip to show us, actually. Quite coincidental, as I promised you, didn't know what tweets were going to be coming up there. She very coincidentally popped up on the Twitter feeds when I do have a video to share on how one fisherman viewed the impact of Brexit on his industry. An interview with her for GB. So let's just soak this in, shall we?
Well, joining me now, Andy Dixon, 55 Fisheries. Why is it called 55 Fisheries?
We were previously Cali Fisheries for 30, 40 years, and we did a management buyout 4 or 5 years around about the Brexit time. And the latitude is where we are, 55 degrees north. So all of our customers and clients know exactly where we're based.
Well, surely Brexit has been a good thing, though. I mean, people are saying that things are digitised now. You're going to be saving money. You could charge out really because exporting. Has it been good or bad?
It's been bad. The exact opposite. It hasn't worked out as the government promised, anyhow. Locally here in North Shields, which all I can speak about, it's been a bit of a disaster.
In what way?
In the main, legislation, red tape, documentation is just 100-fold of what it used to be, and this is purely when you're exporting product. The North Shields fleet here target langoustines in the main. The market for your langoustine is France, Spain, Italy in the main. There are other markets, but the best price is there. From the moment Brexit happened, for 4 months, we couldn't literally send anything. You're dealing with a product that has a 4 or 5 day shelf life. Once we managed to go, I think it was April of the same year, so 4 months later, the costs that hit us then still remain now. The fishing fleet, somewhere between 30 and 50 pence for every single kilo of prawns, langoustines landed today.
But what about we can keep our own fish, surely? Then we don't have you fishing in our waters.
It hasn't affected us here locally. I believe other parts of the UK have been affected or possibly benefiting. We don't get a visiting fleet of European vessels here. We used to see a couple of Dutch vessels. They no longer come even now. So we don't have any visiting fleet from mainland Europe into North Shields locally. So that hasn't affected us at all.
Can't you charge more for exporting? If you're exporting something, you're no longer bound by the shackles of the EU pricing structure. Can't you just the money?
No, ultimately not, because they can also buy the same product from within the EU. So the Dutch fleet, the Danish fleet, the fleet, they all catch langoustine. So they have a head start on the UK market. We believe the UK that langoustine is the best. It's the sweetest flavoured. But we're not only talking about langoustine here. There's crab and there's lobster and all these things where the markets are best in mainland Europe, where we need to go for price. It's costing us daily. It's costing the fishermen daily.
Did you vote to leave or?
I was a Brexiteer, and I voted mainly because of the red tape surrounding the UK industry and in particular. If you phoned the authorities in the past prior to Brexit, it was all Brussels got the blame for everything, or nobody can answer whether on a fish size, a mesh size, a gear, anything. Legislation, it was Brussels, Brussels, Brussels. That was my main thought, that we move away from Europe, we can decide and set our own destiny. And nothing's changed on the legislative side, and we're just being affected.
So if you could have that vote again, would you vote to stay or leave?
I would change in a heartbeat, and I would be a Remain.
Oh, of course he would. And there is our GB News correspondent, absolutely perplexed, not even understanding herself. 5 years later, the impact. I mean, I can sit here and slag them all off, but I mean, it's a little bit, and it's probably not that productive, but it's the ignorance still in the face of the evidence. I mean, this was foreseeable. This was foreseeable. The Remain campaign have echoed this in the run-up to the Reform campaign, or in the run-up to the referendum. That, you know, they highlighted the issues. They highlighted what would become. And, well, to quote Michael Gove, you know, we're done. We're done with experts, really. We're done with legitimate, calculated, academic expert advice, and we're just gonna fucking wing it. Based on nothing but emotion and no plan in place, because there wasn't a plan. And it felt like him. And you know, we saw the people profiteer off this. GB News came into existence and gave John likes of Anakura, and you know, they're still echoing, they're still singing from the same hymn book ever since. But it's not helping people like him. I guarantee you that. And who isn't helping Britain either is Reform UK. Yet they're on the up. Again, it's something that I quite don't understand. But it would be a complete sort of take on today and the reactions of it from the right of British politics if we didn't at least hear from somebody prominent in or from the Reform Party. So let's now just stop over and hear from the ever reliable, the ever trustworthy Richard Tice.
Right, time to talk to Reform's Deputy Leader, Richard Tice, who's here with me now. Very good morning. Thanks for joining us. So we're expecting a deal, though the government moments ago couldn't confirm that it's going to come or not. What do you make of this last minute?
This is just posturing. There's basically been done to surrender some of the opportunities from Brexit, and it's.
Notice he says opportunities. Brexit doesn't go to any benefit that we're going to lose out on. Just it's the small things like that. Sometimes you just have to or listen for.
It's quite clear that a scheme dressed up as youth mobility will actually be a return to freedom of movement.
I mean, again, that's just at the minute baseless. It might well be that we'll progress into something that is a bit more free movement of people again in the future. But at the minute, that's just it's baseless. It's a claim that's got no substance behind it.
All but name, and that's not what the British people want, and they confirmed that when they voted out significantly for reform just a few weeks ago.
And actually, he's lying here again. Well, actually, what he's doing is he's lying, and he's actually confirming that reform is a single issue, one issue party, like UKIP were with the in gaining a referendum. He's kind of confirming here in a bit of about whether all reform stand for is just down with immigration. There's been plenty of polls recently that have found that the British public will be far more willing to see greater ties with the European Union than that they would be to basically push towards what would be a sort of a resemblance of a hard Brexit. So that again, he's either ignorant to that or he's starting. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell with Richard Tice, but either way, we carry on.
If we surrender our ability to make our own rules, instead go to basically being a rule taker from the EU.
Look, we never were. We were to a point, and the European Union as any entity within a collective would be. We have to abide by the rules of an organization. People like him would have absolutely no problem coming from this position of English and British exceptionalism, have a hard time with cracking the whip on Scottish independence or Irish independence, or either any of the countries in the United Kingdom outside of England wanting to do something that is perhaps contrary to what England would want. However, they seem to take exception there with their place in a larger union. Because there has to be a bit of give and take. You can't have all take. There has to be a bit of give. And we had sovereignty. We had the sovereignty to leave, for fuck's sake. So this idea that we don't have sovereignty or we didn't have sovereignty, it's a nonsense. By Brexit and all that really showed was that we are an island incapable of working with others. That was it. That was the biggest sort of red flag from the United Kingdom, is that we couldn't work with others. And this thing for this notion that we want sovereignty back. We had it. We really did. We just like anybody else had to abide by the rules of collective or for collective cooperation. But again, this is the 2015, 2016 rhetoric on that carousel, that populist carousel. It's come back round again.
What they call dynamic alignment. We could have mutual recognition of both sides already existing strong standards. So that's that. And the big surrender, of course, will be on fishing, which is of deep concern to my fishing constituents.
So look, I'm not reiterating, but we've been through Brexit. Fishing industries have been facing a hard time. This new deal seeks to significantly, measurably, and objectively increase the prosperity of the fishing industries. So again, he's either talking to wrong fishermen or he's just lying to you.
In Boston and Skegness are furious at this complete betrayal.
I'll go through those individual line items in a moment, but just stepping back, and obviously you have different priorities to the government, but attempting a negotiation of a deal that you've criticised in the past, that must be something that you ultimately support?
Yeah, look, I mean, you can always improve relations and you want greater trade, but what you can't do is give up the benefits of Brexit. And the key thing there on trade specifically is this issue of rules and regulations.
I don't really need Ian, where's the Brexit benefit? It should be a simple question, but either way.
The EU main economy, Germany, is in recession. And our economy is struggling. The last thing we want to do is hijack and handcuff ourselves to an EU that is in recession. We need to break free of that.
One country, albeit one of the biggest countries, if not the biggest country, being in recession, I mean an EU recession. Just, you know, clarity.
We need to be trading more elsewhere in the world.
Why do we need to be trading more elsewhere in the world? It's good to be trading more elsewhere in the world, but why does that have to avoid our closest trading partners? Why does it have to? Why does for Brexiteers? Why does that translate to global Brexit? Fucking like water around a brick in the river. Just we'll just avoid Europe entirely. Why for them does that mean that? Get it? I honestly God don't get it. Richard Tice, he will just go about any old bollocks. He just feeds you anything to avoid what is an obvious solution to helping our struggling economy. The man said himself, we're struggling. So how does closer ties with our closest trading partner, how is that not a good thing for the United Kingdom? I mean, he goes on in that interview for quite some time. I'm not really wanting to watch Richard Tice, to be quite honest with you. If you want to see that video, go on to Sky News. It's there for you. So look, wherever you are watching this, whether it be live or whether it be on a different platform at a later time, do drop in a Brexit benefit that we're going to be missing out on because of the European Union and the UK's deal that they have struck. Today, I would be very grateful. It would be that first that I am yearning for. Finally, I would really, really like to know what one. I always feel like I'm overlooking one. I don't think that. So please help me out, and I will see you again next week.